Hello again, my name is Mary McNeely and I am the Curious Frau. So one of the comments that came up on the Schleier and Bundlein video that I posted last week was how I came up with the head wraps. And that's a really good question, and I'm glad that you asked it because it's not an easy one to answer. The simple answer is I looked at a whole bunch of pictures and I read a whole bunch of historical wardrobe accounts, and I played around with large pieces of fabric in my workroom for a couple of months and took pictures from various angles and finally came up with something that looked good, and then I wore it for a while and then I tried something else and a couple of serendipitous accidents in there, and that's the short version. The long version is of course longer, and so I thought I'd explain sort of my research methodology, my approach to figuring out how to reconstruct historical garments. The easiest thing to do is to start with a picture. If you have a picture in a manuscript or a painting or a statue that you like the looks of and that you think, I want to make that, that's the easiest place to start. And then once you have that, then I go and I collect as many examples of that kind of dress or garment that I can find, and I try to keep them in a pretty tight grouping. So in a 10-year spread, so 5 years on either side. So say the painting I'm using is dated 1525. I will go to 1520 and 1530 to gather different examples. Now I might find some, say, ancestors of that garment where it's of a very similar cut and shape, but it's not exactly, say it's a dress. So it's not exactly that same dress that I want to make, but you can see that it's going to become that dress. Then I'll add that in my research too, because it might have some different examples of sleeves or a neckline, or you might see like the closures on it that you can't see in the later one. And then there are, of course, there are the descendant examples. So say my dress is in 1525, but there's a painting in 1535 that has, you know, some great details on it. It's obviously the same style of dress, just the style has just progressed a little bit more, so I'll put that in my research collection too. So I try to gather, say, about 15 to 20 examples of full portrait if I can possibly get them. You know, different examples of the same garment, and so I have a good pictorial source to go with. That's the pictures. The harder part is the text. Now, why text? Like, why are texts important? And texts are important because they tell you who owned these kinds of garments, what they were made of, how much they were worth, and lots of other different things about them. Sometimes even who made them or where the person got them from. Now, Nuremberg is, of course, a really easy place to document because we've got tons of text resources from there, from Textiler Hausrat, and we've got some translations from that. There are text resources from other places in Germany. You just need to be able to read a little German and be able to search through googlebooks.de. Once you have your date, then, so 1525, once you have your picture date, then you can start to search for will inventories or bridal inventories in that geographic area that the painting is from, so that you can start to document it. Now, I forgot to explain that when you are collecting picture resources, you need to not just keep the date in mind, but also the geographic location. If you can pinpoint down to a town or a generalized region of where that picture came from, and keep your sources to that regional area, you will have a much easier time and get much less confused as far as construction and fitting details than you will if you say, I want to do a Waffenrock and I'm going to pick the 1520s from all over Germany. Well, that's great, but you're going to have a really hard time coming up with a comprehensive documentation where everything will work. Now, men's styles are a lot easier. They don't tend to have so many regional variations, although there are some, whereas women's styles are all over the place, and they have so many different regional variations in cut, construction, fabrics, headwear styles, accessories. So with women's wear, you really, really, really have to stick closely to a geographical region, and not pick something from the south of Germany and the north of Germany. Especially when you're starting out. When you get more advanced and you have a better eye, you can see like, okay, so that's this style of dress in a different region. So the styles of dress would be the same. They just have a different headdress because it's a different region. That's like the intermediate to advanced stage. You got to start with the beginning stage and keep things simple. So you've got pictures and then you've got texts. So the texts give you an idea of what kinds of fabrics and colors, especially, that the dresses would be made out of. So there are tons of red dresses and black dresses in portraits, and there are some other colors in manuscripts, but we know that they had a lot more dye colors available. It's just red and black were extremely expensive, and so they would have their pictures painted in their best clothes. I mean, don't you all get dressed up when you get your pictures taken? Of course, they did the same thing. Wearing tons of jewelry. Like, these were status symbol pictures. These were probably possibly the one single time they were going to get their picture painted in their entire life. So they wanted to wear their best. So the texts give us a wider sampling of what they had to wear and what they actually wore, not just what got painted. So we've got pictures, we've got texts, and then we've got experimentation. There's another key piece in there, which there's not a lot out there, is published-wise. Catherine Barrick and I are working on a project to make that happen, but there are some German tailor's manuals that actually do have like cuts of garments in them. So that's another resource that you can work with. It's not published yet, so it's not like I can't just give you a book title and say, hey, go look up this book and you could see how these things are made. Not yet. We're getting there. At some point, you have to stop researching and actually just go do the actual sewing. But before you get to that point, you need to analyze your pictures, analyze your texts, and actually come up with sort of a plan of action. Like, what are these pictures telling me? What is this text telling me? What do the extant examples that we have in Patterns of Fashion and the other extant examples that we have in so like Textile and Context and some of the other books that we have from Alpersbach, and the Saxon Moritz von Saxon extant garments. What do those tell me about the things I'm seeing in the paintings, and how can I use those garments to base my assumptions for like cut and construction? So you need to take your picture, take your text, take the extant garments, fold them into, and come up with a plan of here's how I think it was cut. Here's how I think it was patterned. That's what I mean by cut. Here's the materials I think they used. Here's the stitches I think that they used. Here's the color it probably was. Here's the decoration. And once you have all that written out, and it doesn't even have to be like a formal paper, it can just be like sketches in a notebook, then you can go and actually start playing with different fabrics and different wraps and different styles. That's a lot of work, which is of course why I'm not really productive. I mean, not productive, that's not the right word, but I don't produce a huge amounts of stuff I don't have an entire wardrobe of garments, and why I've worn like the same 2 dresses for like the last 5 years, because I am a slow craftsperson. I like to do my research before I actually make it. So I have projects that I've been working on researching and figuring out for the last 9 years. And this might be the year that I actually get the last puzzle piece in place to be able to do that. And guess what? It's okay to take your time and to do a good job. You don't have to be zipping through things at a rapid rate. There's no prize for most crappy costumes produced in a year. Okay, there's no prize for like one single best costume produced in a year. It's up to you as an artisan to figure out like what you feel is presentable to the world before you go out and show it off. There's some stuff out there online that, you know, like when I developed my schlop pattern that I've sold quite a few of, or at least the hats, I haven't sold the patterns, I had 19 different mock-ups that never, like, there are photographs of them on my computer and nobody else will ever see them because they were really wretched models, and it took me a long time to come up with something that really worked. It's okay to take time to get a good product. It's okay to not have something that comes off your table every single week. You can take your time and do things right. So hopefully that sort of explains my research methodology and why I really don't have like a huge portfolio of finished projects. I've got a huge Pinterest board of potentials, but I'm working on finishing some things. So thanks for all the nearly 800 views of the Bündlein and Schleier video this last week. It's been kind of crazy, and comment below with some more questions if you've got them. Bye-bye.